Hello. Do you want to enrich your students' cultural, political, and legal understanding of the world? Do you want your students to learn public policy from a global perspective while actively influencing the public policymaking process at the local level? Do you want to build relationships with your local municipality and form interdepartmental relationships with a university from a city abroad? Do you want to incorporate a global dimension to service learning into your class? I'm Dr. Sirian Villavicencio.
And I'm Dr. Joel White. We are professors and co-chairs of the Department of Political Science in San Joaquin Delta College in Stockton. We will talk about our experience in launching our study abroad program, where we brought 23 students from the underserved community of Stockton, California to Italy and visited Parma, Stockton's sister city.
We will show how our students, through research and collaboration with graduate students from the University of Parma, explored Parma's public policy challenges and applied those insights to address Stockton's own local governance issues, including civic participation, crime, urban security, homelessness, and climate action. This reveals how two distinct sister cities can inspire public policy solutions.
Our students, a couple of whom will be at the symposium, will explain how both students and their professors implement the service learning component by sharing their research findings and policy recommendations to local elected officials as our department held its inaugural public policy forum. Finally, we will explain how we are currently developing an online collaboration with our political science department and the University of Parma's Department of Politics, Law, and International Studies.
Akwaba, Sani Bonani, Jambo, Nangadef. Hello, my name is Deborah Brown, and I'm a professor of history and ethnic studies at Riverside City College. And I'm working on a project entitled Sankofa, Centering Africa and African American Studies. Sankofa is a word from the Akan people in modern-day Ghana that means to go back and fetch it. And the three principles tied to that are to honor one's past, to figure out what's important about the present day as we build for the future. This project looks to the history of Black studies, African American studies, to remind us of the deep, rich history of Africa that was central to its foundations. Current day ethnic studies has been really moved to focus on the United States, but this project really looks to build curriculum that focuses on the rich history of Africa. Please join us at the EPIC Symposium for more.
What if the Fremen's water conservation still suits in Dune weren't just science fiction, but a way to rethink how we live with drought today? Hi, I'm Lisa Gilbert from Cabrillo College. I've been reimagining intro environmental science into a course where students use story, culture, and identity to link the interconnected systems of food, water, energy, and soil. In collaboration with my colleague Carmina Eliason, we reframe sustainability through 4 lenses: imagined spaces, global case studies, regional issues, and personal ethnographies. We use Dune to spark curiosity and action for real-world solutions, such as fog nets in Chile, sand dams in Kenya, and recycled water projects like Pure Water SoCal here in California. If you want to hear more about how this redesigned course centers science as storytelling, knowledge as connection, and solutions as shared responsibility, join us at the Stanford EPIC Symposium.
Our ancestors lived in the natural world. Today, we live in a man-made world. And the young of the 21st century increasingly live in the digital world. To meet today's young students where they are, in the digital world, this Stanford EPIC project is 2-part. First, it creates videos as a medium to teach world history. Second, these same videos cover lesser-known nations of our world, each in its own distinct videographic style. The intent of all these videos is to inspire the viewer to put aside and leave the digital world and to explore the human, natural world as our ancestors did. This is Matthew Cholsky with Santa Ana College, world historian.
The year is 2023. The OceanGate submersible Titan implodes while exploring the Titanic. Wars continue to rage across the world. and the world fell in love with a not-so-young Pedro Pascal. Of course, a group of journalists from The Breeze also explored the conditions and situations that undocumented students at Chaffey College find themselves in during these tumultuous times. And while their reporting on this story was great, as I led them through this process, I couldn't help but realize that there was opportunities for them to connect this local story about students at a Southern California community college with larger issues about immigration. My name's Ian Jones, and I want you to join me for my talk as I tell you about how I developed resources to help my students think globally and report locally.
Imagine having excelled in your graduate business education program, being highly skilled, only to have it minimized due to the unintentional consequence of the cultural glass ceiling, where women are not expected to be seen as top business leaders and entrepreneurs. I am Ebony Mathis, business faculty at Oakland Community College, and on May 17th at the EPIC Symposium, I will unveil my course, Advancing Middle Eastern Women in Business, where students will work on a capstone project of shared recommendations on best practices to advance women in business in the Middle East. I hope to see you there.
On a global scale, what types of crimes are women punished for? Are they different from men's? What role do mothering and reproductive rights play in global expectations of womanhood? And how do those expectations frame the way we think of women offenders globally? Share my passion with me as I take you through El Salvador, Brazil, and the latter part of the Ottoman Empire to understand how gender and racial dynamics contribute to the criminalization of women. I'm Dr. Jessica Morones, and for my EPIC project, I created specialized modules for my currently incarcerated female students at California Institution for Women Prison through Chaffey's Rising Scholars Program, a program that supports formerly incarcerated and currently incarcerated students. I have designed these modules with the hope of furthering my connection with my students as they work to challenge their own narratives about themselves as incarcerated women, become global citizens, and change their lives through education.
Central American countries like Panama and El Salvador have been in the news a lot recently. But there is so much more to this region with an incredibly rich culture and history, starting with the Central American people themselves. There are so many important stories to be told about their lives in Central America, their inspiring and devastating migration stories, as well as the communities that they have developed in the United States and many other countries beyond. My name is Francisco Nájera. I am an ethnic studies professor at Orange Coast College, and I hope you'll be able to join me for my presentation on Centroamericanos en Diáspora at the EPIC Symposium on May 17th. I hope to see you there.
When I was 20, I studied abroad in Norwich, England, which, fun fact, has the highest church-to-pub ratio in the world. In addition to developing an appreciation of English ciders, I learned more about myself and the world in that single year than I did during my entire college experience. When I became a professor, I knew that I wanted my students to have the same opportunities that I had. But college tuition is 3 times more expensive now. For most of my students, studying abroad is simply not financially feasible. That's why my colleague Wojtek Vlach and I, Laura Otto, developed Our Lives, Our World, creating connections across culture. Our project pairs College of Lake County students with international students to interview one another over Zoom and publish stories on the website about what they learned. The goal is to foster an appreciation of cultures outside of their own. Learn more about our project at the EPIC Symposium. See you there.
Does international human rights law really matter? Can it influence decisions impacting the lives and status of women globally? I'm Courtney Powers, a law professor at East Los Angeles College. My mission is to empower students to use the law to advocate for themselves, their communities, and the world they want to see. Through my EPIC project, I've incorporated international human rights law into my classroom. I've designed a curriculum that empowers students to take on the role of attorneys, applying human rights principles to real-world cases involving women's reproductive rights in Japan and women's political rights in Mexico. Through this hands-on approach, students learn that international human rights law isn't just an abstract concept. It's a powerful tool that can shape and determine the most fundamental rights of women. I'm excited to share how my project is inspiring the next generation of advocates.
Hello, and I invite you to recall a fairy tale that once held you spellbound. Remember the magic, the wonder, the unforgettable characters, plot, the dreamlike imagery? I personally think that fairy tales are a cultural celebration of human desire to communicate, to teach, to connect. European fairy tales like Cinderella and Snow White are very popular, but have you ever heard tales just as magical, timeless, yet waiting to be discovered from the other corners of the world? My project is an attempt to exploring fairy tales from countries around the world, weaving them into my course in fairy tales at the Foothill College to offer a rich global perspective on storytelling. Tales from Iran, Vietnam, Palestine, Africa, India come alive. I also explore how fairy tales address social issues like gender biases, violence, utopian beauty ideals, Marxism. Come join me on May 17th at the Stanford EPIC Fellowship Symposium, where fairy tales from faraway lands dance to life in a celebration of culture and community.
What does a rice farmer in the wide, sunny fields of Northern California have in common with one working on the hillside paddies of Japan? For many of my students, the answer would be not much. The places look different, the people live different lives. But what if we could connect them, not just with numbers, but with real stories? Hi everyone, I'm Jacob Vasquez, an agriculture business instructor at Butte College, and through the Stanford EPIC Fellowship, I set out to change that perspective for my students. I developed new online modules for our agricultural economics course that connects the rice industry here in California's Sacramento Valley with the rice farming in Japan. Rice is a major crop in Butte and Glenn counties, and I wanted to help students see it through a global lens, how it's tied not just to economics, but also to culture, community, and tradition. If you're curious about how digital tools and global storytelling can transform student engagement, I'd love to share more at the EPIC Symposium on May 17th. Hope to see you there.
Did you know that only about 10% of American undergraduate students study abroad, and even fewer community college students do so? How do we ensure that the 90+% get exposed to other ways of being in the world that is meaningful, enriching, and actually gives them the soft skills necessary to be successful in their careers? What are those skills, you may ask? Well, adaptability, curiosity, communication, empathy, global and cultural awareness, open-mindedness, self-awareness, just to name a few. In comes Our Lives, Our World, a blog that is a meeting space where our students can interact with their peers from other parts of the world to discuss how they understand community, education, identity, and place, and gain the skills they need. Why? Because not everyone can study abroad, but everybody needs soft skills. My name is Dr. Wojtek Włoch, Director of Global Engagement at the College of Lake County, and together with Professor Laura Otto, I will be presenting this blog during Stanford University's EPIC Symposium on May 17th. See you there!